Hello, welcome to Young and Cold. My name is Pastor Kenny Mokoena.
I am Pastor Tepile Mokoena.
So today we are continuing where we left off in the previous episode. We are talking about, the importance of having a building as a church. And we're talking to you, the Young and Cold, that if you do not put this to heart, you will find yourself 20 years later, 25 years, 30 years later, but you still do not have a building. And let me tell you, your community where your church is will never take you serious until you have a building. The moment you have a building, they now see you as part of the community. You are incorporated. And when you are in a rented property, you become so limited in terms of what you can do, especially if you have a big vision. So God spoke to us last year, beginning of the year, to believe Him for 1 million partners to win 1 billion souls. And let me tell you, there is no way you can win 1 billion souls when you can't even afford to have your own building. So the vision is so massive, and we see God doing amazing things. I mean, we're involved in so many things. We're on television on a daily basis. God is just doing amazing things. So we need to build studios. We run a blessed school of ministry. We want to have a blessed children academy, a Christian school which has got a curriculum that focuses on the gifts of the children, not the kind of curriculum as you see in your ordinary schools. God has spoken to us and given us a vision to raise kingdom builders in our children, and we have already started work around that. So we need a property where we can be able to do all these things. I mean, we believe in raising men and women, through our blessed school of ministry that we're going to send all over the world to do the work of the ministry. So for us to be able to do all that, we need to have a building. So if you have a vision that is big, you need to take that vision to your own home and believe God for even bigger things. So we started with our building project, and this is what we want to talk about today.
We have a big vision that the Lord has given to us to have our own 3,000-seater auditorium.
With a lot of other buildings as well.
That is big, and we believe God for it, and we know that already it is done.
It's done. It's just where we are.
We have to walk in it, but it's already
God has already done
because we serve a big God.
We serve a big God. Yes. So I want to take you through the journey of how that unfolded. So it started in 2021. We spoke about this in the previous episode where God put in our heart to launch our building project. We launched our building project and were able within a short space of time to raise over 2 million, towards that in donations that our members our members alone, without going outside, our members contributed that. And when we're about, to put our deposit down, God redirected us. I think when we finished the last episode, this is the part where we were, where God spoke to us to buy, a man of God that God had brought in our church, a man of God we did not know. We did not know where he's been. In fact, God was doing this for the second time with us. When my wife and I, we bought our second car. So at the time, we were staying in White River, at also known Mpumalanga, and I was working in Nelspruit. My office was in Nelspruit. So my wife had just had, our daughter Tsepiso. So she was starting to drive at that time, and then God blessed us. We were able to buy a second car. We had one car at the time, and then we bought a second car. It was a Bakkie, a hard body, double cab, red in color, brand new. A month after we bought that car, the Lord spoke to us to give that car to a man of God we didn't know. So my pastor sent me to preach in that church for the first time. I had never met the pastor. I had never heard about the pastor. I knew nothing about that pastor. I did not even know the name of the church. And a Saturday before I went to preach in that church, God spoke to us to give that car to him. And my wife and I, we obeyed, and it was such a big sacrifice for us because my wife was just about to have her own car and I have my own car, so that when I'm not around, she needs to go somewhere. She said, just learn how to drive. This was when, I think it was in 2000 and I don't remember, 2005, somewhere around 2005. And we gave that car, so God did it again. In fact, We gave so many cars, my wife and I. After that, the pastor that raised us, we gave so many cars to him, as God put in our heart to do so, because we are givers. We believe in sowing, we believe in planting. We have seen what sowing can do. We have seen what obedience can do. So when God spoke to us to give this old man, to honor this old man, God first said we must ordain him, arrange that Reverend Gumbi ordain him, which we did. Reverend Gumbi came, we had a massive service, and then we ordained him. Shortly after that, God said the ordination must come with a gift, and he specifically told us to buy him a very good car. So we bought him a Mercedes-Benz, very beautiful car, but we used a large portion of the money that we had raised for the building. It did not make sense at all. I don't want to lie. It was illogical. It didn't make sense at all. It defied all sorts of logic, but I had peace in my heart. I spoke to my wife, she had peace. We spoke to our board. The board said, this is God. And then we did it in obedience. And after we did that, something interesting happened. Within a few months after we gave the old man that car, the property that we wanted to buy, it got invaded by squatters. Not just our building, but tracts and tracts of hectares around that area was occupied by squatters. It was a huge invasion that was impossible, literally impossible, to evict. And at the time, what would have happened is, because we had arranged with the owners to give us at least about 6 months to pay it off. So it means at the time that God redirected us, God already knew that property is going to be invaded.
Exactly.
So if we disobeyed God and we went on to put an offer, that property would have been invaded in our hands, and would have done nothing about that. But when God redirected us, we obeyed. Listen, it did not make sense, because for me, that's what ministry is all about. When God calls you into the ministry, you must trust him. You do not know where you are going, but he knows where you are going. To Abraham, he said, to a land I will show you. But Abraham didn't know the things that was going to encounter in the process. He just obeyed God. And we obeyed God.
One thing that stood out for me with the whole process of us offering the man of God, this old man of God, a car and ordaining him. I remember when we had the function to hand over the car, other people that he raised within, his ministry, they came to celebrate with him. But they were saying like, no, but we also wanted to do this.
Yes, they were saying God spoke to us. Actually, there was one pastor who said God kept speaking to us and we kept postponing.
Exactly. So that means we were the ones that obeyed God out of all the people that the Lord has spoken to. So we felt so privileged to be used by God like that. And we will continue to do so. When God speaks, we will always obey.
So if you did not watch the previous episode, this old man just walked into our church and sat down. He did not introduce himself as an evangelist, a bishop. He just came into our church and sat down. We started doing an investigation to find out who is this old man. We could not get anything until God spoke to me that he needed to be ordained as an apostle. And God was specific. He said, Reverend Gumbi must do that. And we did that. Immediately after that, God said he must be honored. And after we honored him, God spoke to me that he had spoken to over 40 men of God to honor this man of God, and they did know it. I'm talking about men of God, some whom he has raised, who knew his journey. He came to us. We don't know this old man, but we just see someone. Up to this day, we continue. The man is still in our church. We continue to look after this old man on a daily basis. I spend a lot of time with him. We invite him to our house. He comes, spends weeks in our house, and we are looking after him because God brought him to us. So immediately after that, after we did that, that property that we wanted to buy was infested by squatters. So in the process of that, God began to redirect us. He said, focus on soul winning, and we went all out doing soul winning, doing crusades and so on. And we saw God doing a miracle. So this year, beginning of the year, God speaks to us to start with the building project again. And God was specific that we must relaunch our building project after our birthday. So our birthday as a church is in May. And then after that, we have an AGM, we have an annual general meeting. every year we will bring
Yes.
all our members, we account them in terms of what God is doing, and God spoke to us to relaunch the project at that time. And between January and May, God did a miracle. As we are focusing on winning souls, a miracle happened. I'm a practicing lawyer. I know evictions. I've done evictions in the past, big evictions. I know how difficult it is to do evictions. In fact, there is a one of my clients in Mpumalanga who has a large piece of land which has been invaded. We got a court order to do the eviction, but we could not execute it because a lot of people has already occupied it. For those who are readers who understand the nature of our constitution, will understand how difficult it is to do evictions, especially mass evictions in our country. But somehow God did it, and He did it in style. How it was done, I'm still in awe right now. So as I'm speaking to you right now, there is not even a trace of evidence in that property of any squatting. And one of the experience that I've seen also in so far as evictions are concerned, once people are evicted in a property like that kind of eviction, they never come back. So that property is still available. That is the property we are pursuing right now, and we relaunched it. You know, at our AGM, there was so much excitement in our church. You know, our members, they are rallying with the vision. You know, we are so excited. That is where we're going to build God a sanctuary. In fact, that's where God is going to build Himself a sanctuary. We are so excited, and we see it as done. So we're going to take a short break. But after the break, we are going to talk to you now about what God did after we launched the project. You are going to be encouraged. Stay right there. Hello, my name is Pastor Kenny Mukwena from Blessed Generation Church. I am standing at a piece of property which we are buying as a church. This is a 6 hectares piece of land which we are buying for 6 million. We need your help to do this. This is where we're going to build our auditorium. This is where we're going to build our Blessed School of Ministry, Blessed Children Academy, and our broadcasting studio is going to be built here. If our ministry has been a blessing to you and God has touched you in a mighty way through this ministry, help us. This place is located strategically to the place where we do our glory crusade and where we win so many souls door to door and on the streets. And I tell you, we are believing God for big things here, but we need your help. So please help us. The information is on your screen. Nothing too big and nothing too small. Whatever God put in your heart, help us, and God is going to touch you in a special way. God bless. So before we went to the break, we were talking about the relaunch of our building project, and we're encouraging you on this and showing you all these different facets to encourage you to believe that when your time comes, you know, to believe God for your own building, God is going to lead you. There's going to be twists and turns. There may even be casualties that are out there. There may be some people that are going to fall by the wayside. You know, some of them, because they cannot handle what they see God doing. Some of them, it can be an element of immaturity. Others, it may be that they do not belong in where God is taking you. So be ready for that, and don't see things happening and panic. You need to focus on what God is doing. Focus on trusting God. That is why even in the previous episode, we talked a lot about the importance of, you know, you spending time with God, so that you recognize His voice, to understand that every time God tells you something, His voice comes with grace. And it's better to lose people than to disobey God. Always be clear about that. Don't measure what God tells you based on the consequences of your decisions. For as long as the Lord has told you, do it, and without hesitation. So after we launched our project, our building project at the AGM, actually it was even before, when our board approved the relaunch of our project. The CEO of TBN, Mr. Lucky Mbiko, he gives me a call one day. He says, Pastor Mukwena, I want to meet with you. I want us to have a fellowship. And by this time, you know, we had many fellowships. I've been on his show, TBN Meets, and then we go and have lunch. So as we're having lunch, he says to me, Pastor, I went to see a pastor in Midrand who had just completed building their church, and I was encouraged by their testimony. As I was leaving, God spoke to me to speak to him and tell him that he needs to meet with you. I don't know what this is about. I heard the voice of God. So what happened is he went to House of Faith Church, pastored by Pastor George Musina in Midrand. So when he went there, he was meeting Pastor George about other things, and Pastor George took him through the building that they've done, a very, very beautiful building, and which they did by faith. In fact, we call our building project Faith Project, and they also call their building project Faith Project. Yeah. So when he was leaving, the Lord speaks to him to speak to Pastor George to meet up with me. So he tells Pastor George to say, you need to meet with Pastor Mkwena. I don't know what this is for, but I feel you and Pastor Mkwena needs to meet. So when we met in that lunch, he tells me this. I said, no problem, I'll meet with Pastor George. I don't know what this is all about. But when he said building, I knew what it was all about. I began to smile and I began to be excited because this is just before that, we just approved the relaunch of our project. He called Pastor George. To cut a long story short, we met with Pastor George Musina. It was so amazing. He took me to their building and began to show me and began to narrate story after story of faith, what God had done, how their building was built by faith. In fact, there were so many similarities in terms of our journey so far up to where we are. I was so encouraged. My faith was so stirred up. A week after that, we're now meeting with our board to finalize the plan for the AGM and do the details of the relaunch. And I presented to them that experience with Pastor George and how they build their building, So as I entered the building, I turned to Pastor George. I said, Pastor George, by the way, our building project God gave us a vision for it, and we call it the Faith Project. And he laughed. He said, our building is also called the Faith Project. And everything that he shared that day was just one story after another about how God had built that house himself. In fact, Pastor George tells me that when they started with their building, when he announced that we are starting to build tomorrow, the only amount that they had in their bank account was 70,000. But by faith, he declared, we are starting to build tomorrow. And I'm telling you, I left that place so stirred up. To cut a long story short, Pastor George came. God spoke to me to invite Pastor George. He came to our church, spoke to the church, encouraged the church and shared the vision. Man, I promise you, the church was just so excited. We had an awesome time. We extended it after the service. We had fellowship where more and more testimonies were shared as we were having lunch. We were so encouraged. And what came out, from that, from my wife and I, was that the first provision that God gave me before a single person gave a single amount in our bank account was the provision of faith. Yes. God was actually saying, I will do it myself.
We find ourselves, so fearful, when God tells you, I want you to build my house.
Yes.
So we tend to be so fearful and we're like,
so doubtful, and look at the figures.
How are we gonna do this? And he's gonna do it himself.
He's gonna do it.
Even if you come across challenges, stumbling blocks, he's still there with you. He's helping you through it. Recognize that he's the one that is doing it. Even if the money can run out, he's the one that must make the provision. Always remind him, Lord, this is your project. You said I must do it. So he will do it.
He will do it. In fact, how God does it, because my wife and I, we are in business as well. We have built buildings before, and we have seen how God will do it. Even our own house that we are using right now for the glory of God. Our house is open for our members. God did it himself. The way, if you can just share the testimony of how God built our home. It's such a massive testimony, and we are using our home. I don't know how many activities have been here. In fact, when we started our church in 2018, every Sunday we'll bring over 40 of members. Every Sunday they will come to our house, they will enjoy fellowship in our house. So we have seen how God does it.
Yes.
Luke chapter 17, very interesting story there. The 10 lepers, they come to Jesus and they say, Master, have mercy on us. They wanted to be healed of their leprosy. Jesus said to them, go show yourself to the priest as a testimony of your healing. The Bible says, as they went, they were cleansed. As they went, they just obeyed. When God said go, they obeyed, because that's what the Great Commission is all about. So we are also going. We're taking our first step now. We are on the verge, as we speak to you now, we are on the verge of now putting an offer, and it's about 6 million that we have to put as an offer for that property that has been there for so long. The owners tried to tell us that that property, they put it on the market for so long. I mean, in 2018, when we started, that property was there. 5 years later, that property is still there. And that property is so close to the area where we do our crusades and our soul winning outreaches, and we know how much it will benefit that community. And that community needs God. I promise you, and God has chosen us. In fact, the things that we do in that community, they are not doable, they are not common, but we have seen God move. The same God who has given us so much success in that community, we know is going to give us success even with this property. And if God touches you where you are now, you feel touched, you feel encouraged by our story, please partner with us. Whatever amount that you can contribute and say, when BGC launched their building project, God touched me, I was part of that project, and we know that God is going to use so many ordinary men and women to do this. The project is massive, but we believe in God to make it happen. Amen.
Amen.
Hello, my name is Pastor Kenny Mukwena from Blessed Generation Church. I am standing at a piece of property which we are buying as a church. This is a 6 hectares piece of land which we are buying for 6 million. We need your help to do this. This is where we're going to build our auditorium. This is where we're going to build our Blessed School of Ministry, Blessed Children Academy, and our broadcasting studio is going to be built here. If our ministry has been a blessing to you and God has touched you in a mighty way through this ministry, help us. This place is located strategically to the place where we do our glory crusade and where we win so many souls door to door and on the streets. And I tell you, we are believing God for big things here, but we need your help. So please help us. The information is on your screen. Nothing too big and nothing too small. Whatever God put in your heart, help us, and God is going to touch you in a special way. God bless.